Hello and welcome to the Saturday Report. It is episode 2. I'm your host, Justin Andes, and another edition here. It is Tuesday, June 23rd, 2026, which means we are a couple of days past the summer solstice, which is, of course, the longest day of the year, meaning evenings are going to get shoulder. Evenings are going to get shorter. The weather is going to get a little bit colder as we move on, and the fall is right around the corner, which means college football is right around the corner, and it's an exciting time around here. We've got a good show here for you today. I say we, it's just me. I've got a good show here for you today. At least I hope it's going to be good. Top 5 quarterbacks to watch going into the 2026 college football season. Who are we keeping an eye on? Who do we think is going to make an impact? And some dark horse candidates to finish the season in the top 5 there. We've also got a few storylines that we're going to be watching coming into the season that will be playing out throughout the 2026 season. But first, before we get into the show, this is a brand new show. Again, we're on episode 2, so the best way to support is to leave a like on YouTube, comment on YouTube, and subscribe if you're watching on or listening on Apple Podcasts or Spotify. Rate, review, and subscribe there. It greatly helps us, or helps me, I say us again, greatly helps me to be able to get the word out there and get this in front of more viewers. So if you have questions, leave them in the comments. Things you want me to cover, leave them in the comments. I greatly appreciate it. All right, let's get into it. Top 5 quarterbacks for the 2026 college football season. Who is entering the season in the top 5? This is not a projection of who's going to be finishing the season in the top 5 by any means, because I don't think there's any reliable way to be able to do that. Every year you've got players that are playing up. Every year you've got players that come in with high expectations and they play down. So who do I think is entering the season in the best position to be in that top 5 conversation? I'm actually going to start with a couple of dark horse candidates that we have to finish the season in the top 5 that aren't there right now. So I want to be fully clear. These are not current top 5 quarterbacks, but they're dark horses to finish the season in the top 5 if they do things the right way, if they play their cards right, and if they develop how they should. The first is Bryce Underwood at Michigan. Bryce Underwood came out of high school a couple of cycles ago as the number 1 overall recruit, and you watch the film, you watch what he was able to do in high school. The dude was a freak. He was an alien. He was basically just, it looked like he was playing a different sport than everybody. He was head and shoulders above them. But he gets into college, and his freshman campaign last year was exactly that, what you would expect out of a freshman campaign. He didn't light the world on fire. He had struggles here and there. So this year, it's all about how can he develop as a quarterback, as a passer, and as the leader of that offense. He had flashes last year showing that he could be special. He had times where his arm looked really, really great. Obviously, his legs, he can run people over. He can run around you. He can juke you out. Can he start to put a little bit more of it together this year, I think, is going to be the key. He does now have a new offensive coordinator. His offensive coordinator is Jason Beck, coming over from Utah. He was Utah's offensive coordinator last year in a team that really did a great job on the offensive side of the ball. But what is so important about what they did on the offensive side of the ball last year is where they were the year prior to Jason Beck coming in at Utah. So in 2024, Utah was 102nd in national scoring offense. So they bring in Jason Beck after that. And they finished last year, 2025 season, 4th overall in scoring offense, which is an upgrade of 98 spots out of the 134 college football teams. So yeah, I would say that he did a really good job in getting Utah from no offense to an amazing offense. Can he turn Bryce Underwood into, or from a really, really good quarterback with elite capabilities into an elite quarterback in and out every single Saturday? We'll see. The second dark horse quarterback that I have is Austin Simmons over at Missouri. If you haven't been paying attention, Austin Simmons transferred to Missouri this offseason. Last year, if you didn't know, Austin Simmons beat out Trinidad Chambliss for the job at Ole Miss. Now, granted, his first couple of games were not perfect by any means. He had some struggles with turning the ball over, but Lane Kiffin had trusted him enough in his offense to give him the starting spot over Trinidad Chambliss. And we all know what happened with Trinidad Chambliss last year. He went on to have an amazing season. So, was Lane Kiffin right, is the question. Did Lane Kiffin make that correct decision at the beginning of the year? I think time will tell. Obviously, this year, if Austin Simmons can take that next step up, he's obviously coming off of injury as well. So how's he going to be recovering from that? But I think Drink over at Mizzou got a really good quarterback here, and he could easily, if he plays his cards right, finish the season in that top 5 category or in the top 5 to 10 of quarterbacks. All right, now we get into the actual top 5. I was going to say that these are in no particular order, but I think that's a cop-out, if I'm being quite honest. So I actually did put these in order of who I think the top 5 quarterbacks are coming into the 2026 college football season. At number 5, we've got Sam Leavitt at LSU. Sam Leavitt transferring over from Arizona State after coming off of an injury last year. He had surgery. It seems like everything's going well with his recovery coming into LSU. But Lane Kiffin, he got his quarterback, and really any quarterback under the Lane Kiffin system you think is going to at least be serviceable, if not be taking another step in their career to be really, really good, great, and even elite, again, as we saw Trinidad Chambliss playing last year. So Sam Leavitt coming off of a 2024 season where he had just under 3,000 passing yards, 24 touchdowns, and 6 interceptions. And then in 7 games last year, 2025 season, he had 1,600 passing yards, 10 touchdowns, and 3 interceptions. The question is, where's his confidence at with the recovery from his surgery? Can he still use his legs? Can he get out of the pocket? Can he rush for first downs? His legs were a weapon of his, and it also allowed the passing game to open up a little bit more because they had to respect him and his legs, keep a nice tight pocket around him. They couldn't always consistently rush as much, so they had to drop back into coverage. He does have to fix some accuracy issues. That's one thing I will say. As I was going through all the numbers of all the quarterbacks in the top 5, I believe he had the lowest completion percentage over the last 2 years. In 2024, 61.7% completion rate. 2025, 60.7% completion rate, so even a little bit worse than the year before. How is he going to improve there? A lot of that's going to rely on the LSU wide receiver core and how well they are going to be able to piece that together. They don't really have any big standout names that you would normally expect for LSU coming into the season, but LSU always has great receivers. So who's going to step up, if anybody, in that core to help out Sam Leavitt? Number 4, we have Julian Sayin over at Ohio State, coming into his redshirt sophomore year. Last year, he did not play poorly at all. 3,600 yards, roughly, 32 touchdowns, and 8 interceptions. But they were passing the ball around quite a bit with him, and we've got a new offensive coordinator coming in with Arthur Smith. Now, from everything that I read and everything I know about Arthur Smith, he loves to establish the run and be I don't know if run-first offense would be the right thing to say, but he wants to run the ball, and he wants to run it effectively. So, number 1 question is, are these numbers going to take a little hit for Julian Sayin? Is he going to still get as many yards passing? Is he still going to get as many opportunities to throw touchdowns? We'll see. Again, time will only tell with that whenever we get those first few games in this season. But it still is Ryan Day's team. Ryan Day loves to take shots downfield. He loves to open up the field, and he's also got the alien of all aliens in Jeremiah Smith as his number 1 receiver. Now, one big question is who's going to be his number 2, who's going to be his number 3. If Jeremiah Smith is the only one that emerges from that group as an elite receiver or as even a great receiver, it might get a little bit tough because teams can double up, teams can triple up. They can find ways to limit the effectiveness of Jeremiah Smith. He needs somebody else to be able to step up whenever a defense makes the trade-off to cover Smith heavier. Somebody else has to find a way to get open, and Sayin has to find a way to get the ball to them. So I think he's starting the season in a great position. We'll see where that goes. Number 3 quarterback in my top 5 list is going to be Dante Moore over at Oregon. Dante Moore, I think, is coming in off of a really, really great 2025 college football campaign. Obviously, he still had some places that he wanted to grow, and I think that's why he came back to Oregon. He obviously, I keep saying obviously, and I don't mean to keep saying that. He was going to be a top 5 pick in last year's NFL draft, and he chose to forego the 2026 NFL draft to come back for his college football season, for his senior season. Last year, he had 3,565 passing yards, 30 touchdowns, and 10 interceptions. 3 of those interceptions, 3 of the 10 came in a single game against Indiana. So those numbers are just a little bit skewed. Outside of one game, he only had 7 interceptions, which is a pretty bang-up job of taking care of the ball. How is Dante Moore going to progress? I think a big piece of his game is just playing up to his competition whenever he plays against good competition and not just playing great against the poor competition. He showed a handful of times last year that he was able to do that. I think he's a really good quarterback, and he's got DeCorian Moore and Evan Stewart at wide receiver. So he's got no shortage of talent trying to catch his passes. The question is, can he get the ball to them consistently? I'm not sure what the O-line is looking like for Oregon right now. I need to dive into that a little bit more before the season starts. Can they keep him upright, and can he get the ball downfield? I think is going to be a big question, but he has the ability with those weapons at receiver to go and make a Heisman push, a Heisman campaign, and to obviously make a playoff push and a national championship push, which I know everybody at Oregon wants, especially Dante Moore. Probably another reason that he came back for this final season. We just need him to be more consistent when playing against elite competitions, especially elite defenses like Indiana had put on the field last year. All right, top 2. Number 2, we've got Darian Mensah transferred over to Miami, the transfer from Duke. Some people don't recognize or haven't been talking about the fact that he actually transferred from Duke to Miami alongside his number 1 receiver, who was also a 1,000-yard receiver, which is insane that we had a 1,000-yard receiver at Duke. I don't know how often that's happened in the past, but Darian Mensah moves over with his 1,000-yard receiver, Cooper Barkate. And we've also got Malachi Toney on this team, if anybody forgot. The freshman 18-year-old phenom from last year who basically just shook everybody out of their boots, ran everybody off of the field, and just made amazing play after amazing play after amazing play all year long, all the way to and through the national championship game. So I think Darian Mensah, let's go through his stats from last year because those are also nuts. 3,973 yards, so just under 4,000 passing yards. 34 touchdowns, only 4 interceptions in the entire season. Now, I know a lot of people say, yeah, but he was playing in the ACC. Guess what? He's playing in the ACC again. Miami is in the ACC, if you forgot. So he's going to be playing against very similar or the same competition, and he's just going to have better weapons around him. So how well is that O-line going to stand up? We'll see. They have quite a bit to replace there, but I don't see a world where Darian Mensah falls flat on his face. I guess I see a world where he can finish outside of the top 5 in the quarterback race, but really with where he's at and where Miami is positioned, I think he's solidified himself toward the top of this top 5, if not finishing the season at the top. I think his ceiling could be that high. So we'll see. We'll see what this year has to hold for him. And number 1, probably a few people that you think we could put here, but we're not going to fix whatever isn't broken. Arch Manning is in the number 1 spot of the top 5 quarterbacks coming into the 2026 college football season. Last year, 3,163 yards, 26 touchdowns, and 7 interceptions. You'll notice those numbers are fairly in line with the other quarterbacks that we have in this top 5 list. But if you listen to people online, you listen to commentators, they'll say that Arch Manning had a really disappointing season. And I agree. I think his season, I don't know if it was disappointing. I think it was disappointing compared to where his expectations were. but it's his first year as a full starter. And we got into this last episode a little bit more. College football is a different game. It's a different animal. It's the same thing Bryce Underwood was going through last year. You have to learn to adapt. You have to learn to speed up your play, speed up your decision making, and make your reads faster. And he had to learn that basically immediately because they started the season at Ohio State last year. And whenever you start the season that poorly, you've got to work your way back up. You're essentially just like a wounded animal trying to get yourself back up to healthy before you can go and start attacking. So the first half of his season last year was lackluster. The back half of his season last year was pretty dang good. And then the bowl game that they played in against Michigan, opt-outs played a factor, but I don't think it played a big enough factor. He played really well in that game, and I think he set himself up really well to play or to come into the 2026 season in pole position to make a Heisman campaign and to just be a game changer and lead the Texas Longhorns to where they eventually want to go, which is going to be a deep playoff run again, and hopefully on their side a national championship. That is the expectation around there. He's also got Cam Coleman coming in from Auburn, who we keep talking about aliens in this segment. What an alien there. He made Auburn's offense look decent last year. Anytime they threw it to Cam, he was basically going up, catching the ball, mossing somebody. He's really good. They still got Ryan Wingo over there. They have a perceived elite O-line at Texas as well. So if they can keep him upright and he's got the weapons on the outside, I don't see an issue with Arch Manning, and I really don't see him, again, falling flat on his face. I absolutely can see him falling out of this top 5, maybe in the 5 to 10 range towards the end of the season or by the end of the season. But if he can make the year 2 jump, then we're good. Then we have nothing else to talk about because he's going to be in that elite category. And that wraps up our top 5 quarterbacks going into the 2026 college football season. Again, this is a new show, so like, subscribe, and comment. I want to hear who I missed in this, who you wanted to see in this top 5 list, who's in your top 5. Are there any other dark horses that maybe aren't in your top 5, but you think can finish in the top 5 this season? I'd love to hear that. Leave them in the comments below. All right, let's move on to the second segment, which are the college football storylines to follow in the year 2026. 2026 college football is going to be a little different than it feels like prior seasons because of things like the legislation that we have going through the Senate right now for the Save College Sports Act. We've got a brand new reigning national champion in Indiana, who essentially has never climbed to this part of the mountain before. We've got coaching changes, we've got portal changes. So what are the big storylines that I'm looking at going into the 2026 college football season? The first is the Big Ten really going to four-peat for national championships? Is the SEC going to let that happen? Because the past 3 years, they've let it happen, and I don't want to say it wasn't close, but it felt like it wasn't close. 2023, Michigan wins the national championship. 2024, Ohio State wins the national championship. In 2025, obviously last year, Indiana came through and just bulldozed over everybody in winning their first national championship. I think it's their first. I don't want to misspeak there, but I think it's their first. Before these last 3 national championships, the SEC won the 4 before that and 13 of the previous 17 from 2005 to 2022. If the Big Ten comes through and they win a 4th national championship in a row, they solidify themselves at the top of college football. I still, and I'm probably going to get some flack for saying this, I still don't think that they're the best conference in college football. I think they're the most top-heavy conference in college football, and their top 4 teams can go up against anybody and beat anybody in the country. SEC, I think, is still the best conference top to bottom in the country. They are a little bit more in towards the mean or the median now, meaning they don't have those top-tier elite standout, just throw the ball, run the ball, defense all over you teams like you're seeing in the Big Ten. But again, their bottom third and their middle third are going to be not light years ahead. They're going to be well ahead of the bottom third and the middle third of the Big Ten. So every single week is still a competition in the SEC. Every single week you still have to go in, you have to play your best football to make sure you get out of there. Whereas in the Big Ten, you can go and you can play Northwestern, you can play your 70% game, and you can get out of there with a pretty affirmative win. But if we get to the point where the Big Ten wins 4 national titles in a row, they not permanently, they really solidify themselves as the top dogs in college football. And it's up to the SEC to go and to take that back from them at that point, in which it's going to take multiple years of consecutive national champions to do so, which I don't know if the SEC has the ability. I think they have the ability to do it again, but it seems that nobody in the SEC is taking that next step forward like they are at Miami and trying to get better, like they are at Ohio State, and just bringing in NFL coordinator after NFL coordinator to keep this program running. It seems like Georgia's and Alabama's and Texas's and all of them, they're trying their best, but they're not pushing the right buttons at the right times. And really, they're fielding an elite team, but maybe they're not fielding as elite of a coaching staff. I don't know what the exact problem is, and I'm definitely not the expert to diagnose it all. But what I can say is, if the Big Ten wins another national championship, making it 4 in a row, they solidify themselves as the top dog in college football, and there's no question about it. The second storyline that I'm looking at going into the 2026 college football season is Curt Cignetti in Indiana. Are they going to repeat, and I'm not saying repeat as a national champion, but are they going to repeat in having as much success as they've had over the last 2 years, or was this a flash in the pan? Was last year just a one-off flash in the pan? It's not going to happen again. And what I mean by this is, let's look back a handful of years now and go back to 2019 LSU. 2019 LSU, arguably the greatest college football team ever assembled. Ed Orgeron comes into the 2020 season and expectations are sky high. People have LSU in their top 5 to top 10 nationally. Everybody's talking about how great they're going to be. Obviously, you got the COVID year coming. Jamar Chase doesn't come back, but still, they should have a good enough team where they're going to be projecting the top 5 to top 10. And they come in and they fall flat on their face. Not 1 year, not 2 years, but basically it seems every year since then. They've had a couple of great years, Jaden Daniels in there, but at least for the Ed Orgeron tenure, he wins a national championship and his foot immediately comes off the gas. And he doesn't do the things that he needs to do to consistently have that program winning titles over and over and over again. I don't think Curt Cignetti is cut from the same cloth as that. I think once he won his first, he got a taste of blood and he just wants more. So in my eyes going into the season, Indiana, yes, they're still going to maintain their high level of performance, competing for playoff spots and national championships. Now, they do only have 50% of their production returning from last year, which puts them about 52 nationally. That's not terrible. It's obviously not great, but you're trying to fill the gaps of the people that you left and the players that left you to go to the league or that graduated. And it's a lot of holes to plug. It's a lot of holes to fill. The biggest one that they did fill was Josh Hoover coming in from TCU at quarterback. I was listening to a show earlier, and I didn't know that Josh Hoover was actually the returning career passing yards leader in college football right now out of active quarterbacks. So of all the quarterbacks in college football, he has the most passing yards in his career. And Curt Cignetti got him. And we all know what Curt Cignetti does whenever he has older, experienced players. So we'll see how that how that turns out. I think Sig still got it, obviously, but I think he still got the fire, I guess is what I'm trying to say. I think he's still got the fire to go and compete for and win national championships, and he's still waking up every day pushing towards that. Finally, the third storyline that I'm wanting to follow in this 2026 season is the Lane Kiffin versus Pete Golding. I don't even know what to call it. It's the Kiffin versus Golding fest. LSU fans and Ole Miss fans both, and I'm an LSU fan, so I feel like I kind of get to say this, but it hurts to say. They've both been insufferable for the last 8 months or so. Ever since Lane Kiffin takes the LSU job, Ole Miss fans attacking LSU fans and everything LSU does. LSU fans going back and attacking everything that Ole Miss does. And really, I'm just ready for football to be played because I I think the time for talking is over for everybody, and everybody is ready for week 3 in Oxford to come, where Lane Kiffin walks in to Oxford all over again. We'll see what happens there. It's going to be a fun and interesting time. If you aren't privy, here's the backstory. Lane Kiffin goes to Ole Miss. He does such a great job that they make a documentary on him from ESPN, talking about how he needed Ole Miss more than Ole Miss needed him. He needed the time over there to be able to redevelop himself and all of that. And Ole Miss fans are endeared towards Lane Kiffin. And all of a sudden, Brian Kelly gets fired at LSU. And Lane Kiffin, his name starts getting brought up around that circle. It got brought up around the Florida circles and around other coaching searches in years prior, but he never went anywhere. Well, this year, it seems like that sentiment had changed just a little bit because a lot of really high-profile jobs were open. Ole Miss fans want him to stay at Ole Miss. Obviously, they love the guy. He has taken Ole Miss from a program that was consistently in that 6-6 to 8-4 range every year, and he made them perennial 10-game winner every single year. Fighting for playoff spots. Obviously, they get to the playoff last year. Right before the playoffs last year, he ends up taking the LSU job, making Pete Golding, who was the defensive coordinator, become the interim head coach and go into the playoffs with him as their head coach, essentially, as Lane Kiffin takes the LSU job. At that point, Ole Miss fans are absolutely pissed at him. They don't want to talk about him or to him anymore. Pete Golding is their guy, but they're still taking shots at Kiffin as every chance that they get. Essentially, we get to a point now where the rivalry between LSU and Ole Miss could not be any bigger. It could not be any more nasty. They could not have anything else between them that would make them hate each other more. So week 3 in Oxford, again, it's going to be a movie. It's going to be a cinema. But that's not where the story is going to end. The story, I don't think, is going to end this year even. It's going to end in years to come. But the question is Pete Golding and Ole Miss going to finish the year ahead of LSU and Lane Kiffin? Because if so, Ole Miss fans have a point to stand on where they say, you made the wrong decision, you went to the wrong spot. If Lane Kiffin comes in and makes the playoffs in year 1 and Ole Miss underachieves and misses with Golding, Lane Kiffin and LSU fans have every right to go back to the Ole Miss fans and say, hey, you were wrong, he made the right decision, he came here for a reason. So this is going to be week after week after week. Any loss that comes up, pointing fingers, laughing emojis, everything's going to come out of that. Anytime that wins happen or big wins, it's going to be a lot of celebration from these teams. So I'm very excited to see and just intrigued in seeing who's going to come out at the top of that at the end of this year. And again, I don't think this year is going to be the end of that story by any means. All right, and that's our show. Thank you very much for watching. Again, remember to like the video, subscribe to the channel, and comment with any of your questions, your comments, or things that you want us to cover. If you're watching or listening to us on Apple Podcasts or Spotify, rate, review, and subscribe there, and we will see you again next time.